Are you your own worst critic? Let's talk about it today and some ways to become your own biggest cheerleader instead. Welcome to my channel. If you are new, my name is Marissa Price. I am a Black woman social worker, writer, and healer dedicated to helping you heal, sharing information, resources, and knowledge, both from my background as a social worker and also my lived experience, because that's where a lot of these epiphanies come from, right? My own lived experience. So yes, if you're joining, please introduce yourselves in the chat so we can say hello to you, as always. But welcome, and please subscribe if you're not already for content like this around healing, sharing knowledge, resources with each other, as we are on a collective healing journey of unlearning a lot of the things that don't serve us and really coming into our authentic selves. So yes, welcome. Welcome if you're joining. Hey Marissa, good to see you. Good to see you. Enough by M&T. Yes, please subscribe to Marissa's channel, Enough by M&T, for healing art. I saw you go live last night creating art. Thought that was so cool. So yes. Welcome, welcome. SP, hello. SP sending love and light from Texas. Don't forget about your loyal base when you blow up. Oh, wow. Thank you for that. Thank you. And I won't. Wow. Okay. I love that. Thank you so much for that. No, I'm so appreciative for y'all. Yeah. And thank y'all for always being here, sharing your experiences, information in the chat, because I learn from you as well, right? The things that you share, it's not just me up here presenting, it's like really a community learning process. So grateful for y'all. Yes. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Yes. So yeah, the title of this video is How We Heal from Self-Criticism and Unlearn Negative Self-Talk, right? This is a huge thing that I've been sitting with, even with my past video that I did on, I think it was Thursday, people pleasing. When I tell y'all, I criticized myself in my head after that video. And I'm like, and I had to pull myself out, which is one of the things I'm going to share today, how we interrupt this pattern. When you start to see yourself going down all the things that you did wrong in your head, because no one else is seeing that but you. These are things that you've internalized. Realizing that you have the agency at any point to stop that thought process and go a different route. And I think that's very important to recognize. You don't have to just throw up your hands and be like, I'm spiraling and I don't have agency or control in this situation. You're the person in control of that, whichever way that your thought pattern is going. You're the person who can step in and say, I'm not going to criticize myself anymore. I'm actually going to lean into compassion and celebrating myself for the victory that was just won. You have the power to do that. Hey, Danny, good to see you. Yes, please subscribe to Danny's channel, y'all, Natural Ally D, if you're interested in aromatherapy and social work, fellow social worker. Yes, good to see you here. Good to see you. SP says, will you touch on comparing today? I don't have that in my notes, but let's see. It'll probably come up organically. Let me write that down. Thank you for that. Comparing. Ooh. And that's why I love going live with these topics, because my notes are limited, right? They're just from my experience, my knowledge base. So getting other people to share like what they've been through when it comes to self-criticism, that kind of expands the purview of what we're talking about. So I love that too. Yes. So just to say, like, oppression, which I'm going to talk about too, compounds things like childhood trauma, which is often the root of self-criticism. Someone criticized us very early on. And so now we're criticizing ourselves. Now we're taking that into adulthood, right? 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. We're still operating in the same thought pattern someone said to us at 5 years old, at 7 years old, 9 years old. We're still carrying that messaging into adulthood. And it is only through recognizing that we have the agency and power to now say, no, I'm not continuing that. That's really where the healing happens, right? Yes, so childhood trauma, right, is often caused by oppression too. So oppression compounds childhood trauma, and then childhood trauma that we experience is often caused by oppression. So this is a vicious cycle, right? If we don't step in and interrupt it and recognize the power that we have in this situation. When we realize that we're being critical of ourselves, we can step in and go a different route. Danny says, sending healing. Girl, you are blessing for showing up. Oh, thank you. Any mistakes are just that. It's okay. You are human, dear. That's right. That's right. And I think even reflecting on YouTube, like going live, like this is like the final cut, right? So you have to be okay with showing up authentically, making things that you view as mistakes that other people are actually learning from, right? When I watch people on live, I'm not sitting there like taking notes on everything that they're saying like meticulously. Which again, if you have trauma from the school system, the education system, the way that we are educated from such a young age, someone like grading us at everything that we do, are you now taking that and using that against yourself? And it's only through a process of realizing that that's what's happening that we begin to heal those wounds and recognize the roots of why we're doing this. Yeah. Marissa says, it has been helpful for me to ask, who says? Ooh, I love that when I start to talk down on myself. Writing that down. Thank you. Who says? Who says I'm not worthy? Who says I'm not talented? Who says I'm not gifted? Who says I can't take up space? Who said that? Right? And you create the narrative now. You're in control. Because someone in the past may have said that to you. That you aren't worthy, that you aren't deserving, that you don't deserve to be here. But now you're in the driver's seat. And you don't have to continue that harmful messaging that was told to you in the past. That's really like the point of this video. That's how we heal from self-criticism. Recognizing our power and our agency to disrupt harmful thought patterns that are not serving us, that other people placed within us, right? Because this is a way that we have internalized what people have said to us externally. And now we're telling it to ourselves. So it's recognizing that. So why this happens? So self-criticism is a maladaptive, meaning not conducive to your adaptation, behavior that is learned. This is learned. That has to be emphasized. This is an external voice that you have now internalized. You have taken with you into adulthood, maybe something that, again, you received, a message that you received very early on. That was not there to uplift you, to encourage you, to see you flourish, that really sought to bring you down a level. You have now taken that inside, and now you're speaking these same words to yourself. And you may not even be consciously aware that that's what's happening. But that is the root of self-criticism, because we do not come here criticizing ourselves. I mean, if we think about children, if we think about babies, do they come here criticizing everything that they do? Doubting themselves? Like, that's kind of ridiculous to even think about. So we realize that this is a learned behavior over time that we have adopted in harmful environments, and this is how we've responded. Right? A lot of us will try to get ahead of other people criticizing us by criticizing ourselves. Who is that serving? Is this allowing for your continued growth and evolution to be your own worst critic? Are you also bringing yourself down a notch? And why would you ever need to bring yourself down a notch? You're put here to flourish, to thrive, to take up space. That's why you're here. Hey, Ty J Harmony, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Yes, so why this happened? Someone criticized you, and now you have internalized their voice. Again, we don't come here criticizing ourselves. Some questions to ask yourself. Was this a caregiver early on? And some of these questions that I'm laying out are also in my workbook, which I will put here up on the screen. 5 steps to begin healing from childhood trauma, because again, a lot of the roots of why we criticize ourselves are in childhood trauma. So I'll link that here in the chat too. Was this a caregiver early on who criticized you? Were people around you highly critical? Were you not able to make mistakes? Did people blow up? Did people have an emotional reaction, a volatile reaction when you made a mistake? when you were human, right? That is part of the human experience, the lived experience. You have to make mistakes in order to learn. But when you made a mistake, who blew up at you? Who told you that you were worthless? That you didn't deserve whatever that you had because now you made a mistake? Again, you were human. So it's really important to recognize that this is not your voice. This is someone else's voice that you have internalized. And now you're criticizing yourself. Now you're not allowing yourself to make mistakes, which again is not allowing yourself to evolve. If you're not allowing yourself to be human, how is that stunting your continued growth? How is that getting in the way of your healing? Questions to ask yourself. Were you in a toxic job, as I talk about on my channel all the time, right? And Dr. Kamani, Lifting as We Climb Consulting, talks about this on her channel as well. Were you in a toxic job that has now taken a hit on your self-esteem? Did people criticize what you were doing? Were you experiencing microaggressions? And micro just meaning like person to person on that level. Aggressive behavior from people trying to, again, take you down a notch, diminish your light. Did your teachers try to break your self-esteem? I know this was the case for me, right? Having to come back through my experiences in the US education system. Over and over again, I have had teachers who have went out of their way to try to bring me down a notch. When I was shining, right, the point of education should be to support, uplift, encourage children to really flourish and step into their gifts. That was not always my experience in the US education system. And how many of us have had the same experience of a teacher going out of their way to see the light that we have and try to intentionally dim it? And now we're doing this to ourselves. Now we're criticizing ourselves. We've taken on their voice, which is one of the ways that oppression works and continues to function. We adopt the voices of our oppressors. And so the work that they used to have to do, we do it to ourselves. And it's only becoming consciously aware of the fact that we're doing this that we can cut those chains and say, no more. I'm not criticizing myself anymore. Who is this? This is not serving me. This is serving someone to keep me in my place, but this is not serving me. And it's being really clear about that. Oh, thank you. Marissa says the article about the tree. Thank you. Yes, my Substack is linked in the description section if you do want to subscribe to my Substack blog. I did write a piece on, do trees question their worth? As I was just frolicking in nature the other day, looking at trees, right, and realizing trees don't question why they're here. Trees do not criticize themselves. And so what can we learn from looking at other living things on the planet, not just human beings, because our understanding is limited? Other living beings, do they sit around and tell themselves they don't deserve to be here? They don't deserve to take up space? Or do they flourish unapologetically? And how can we lean into that same energy? Oh, thank you for that, Marissa. Trees don't judge their branches for being crooked. Then later we get to enjoy their unique shape. That idea is very healing. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Yes. Yeah. It's the beauty of every tree. And y'all love trees, so. But it's the beauty of every tree being unique, unapologetically, taking up space, and we get to witness their beauty. Why can't we do that to ourselves? Why can't we do that to ourselves? Yeah. Ty J Harmony says, you are so great. Oh, at selecting topics to discuss. Oh, I saw the title and was excited to hear your perspective. I absolutely love these lives. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, this was a discussion with a friend, right? I was like, I do the same thing to myself. I self-criticize all the time. And just like combing through, what is that about? What are the roots of this? So I'm so glad, and I'm glad you enjoy these lives. Thank you for that feedback. Hope Richly says, yes, a child being put down by adults, that is too much. Yes. Good to see you here. And yes, agreed. That's another way that oppression works, right? The people who are in a position of power will take out that power on people who have less power. This entire system that we live in is based on power. And really having to sit with that and recognize how that shows up in interpersonal interactions. It's often parent, child, caregiver, child, teacher, child, boss, employee, right? Anywhere that you have an elevated position of power and you can look down on someone and you can try to extract some of their power to make yourself feel even bigger, it's a continuous cycle. So thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, children are often affected by this so deeply. We criticize them to take some power back as adults. I mean, and it's important to recognize that. How are we continuing these cycles in these relationships versus being compassionate when kids make mistakes, because we realize this is impacting their brain development. When you are highly critical on someone who is new here, who has no idea what they're doing, right? None of us do, but who is brand new to earth, and you're taking it upon yourself to criticize a mistake that they make, you might be impacting them for the rest of their life. So that's very important to realize too. Yeah. So why this happens? You were bullied. You may have been bullied, right? Did people make fun of you for things you couldn't change and you're still operating in that thought pattern? You're bullying yourself now. Right? This is real, and this is something I've had to sit with as someone who was bullied all throughout school. Am I now bullying myself? And the answer to that is yes, often. If I do not step in and disrupt that pattern that was put in place very early on, again, in environments that were not safe, that were not conducive to my evolution, growth, I may be continuing that same harsh treatment to myself. Right? So the bullies are long gone, but now I'm my own bully. So that may be a reason too. And I'll be speaking with Katrina 2 weeks from now on my channel about healing from childhood bullying, if that is a topic that resonates with you. Looking forward to that conversation too. So other reasons why this happens. You were, or you're still in environments that don't allow you to be your authentic self. So you're criticizing the parts of yourself that make you stand out. Right? Rather than recognizing that this is an oppressive environment that I'm in. This environment clearly does not allow me to show up authentically. Right? I can't be my full self. And we know that, just going back to the workplace, right? The messaging. I feel like, especially as I came out of college into the workforce, the messaging around be your full self, be your authentic self, bring your full self to work. We know for Black women, that's absolutely false. Okay, that's a lie. But we're entering into spaces that tell us these things. So we bring our full selves and then we're criticized. Now we're doing too much. Well, I thought you said I could be my authentic self. Oh, my bad. Did I say that? And it's like, really, like, that's a lie. Right? So it's important to recognize the environment that you're in may not be allowing you to be your authentic self. And so now you're criticizing yourself, right? For things that you don't have to, you don't need to, because that is how oppression works. It tells you that things are wrong with you, that nothing is wrong with you. So you begin to pick apart yourself. And the oppressors don't have to do it anymore. They can have their leisure time. That's one of the things I've been thinking of. Who gets to have leisure time in the society? And they don't have to do the work anymore because now we've internalized their voices. Hey, welcome, Min XOXO. Your channel has some of the best topics. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you for being here. Bullying is so traumatizing. It is. And people think it's something normal that everyone goes through and should just get over. Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah. And the messaging around that, right? It's just something that you should expect, like you said. Growing up, being bullied, having your self-esteem broken, and then you're supposed to be this adult that doesn't have any lingering issues from what you experienced being bullied all throughout your life. How does that happen? Like, that's faulty. Because our brains are in crucial development stages during the times when we're being bullied, we're being told that something's wrong with us, things that we can't change. And so now we're in adulthood carrying these same thought patterns forward, right? And I have a theory about why we stay, I'll speak for myself, why I stayed in a toxic work environment, because it mirrored being bullied very early on in school, in an environment I couldn't leave. And it was only me recognizing that I'm an adult and I can now extract myself from that environment where I couldn't early on. Right? So the roots of this run really deep. And that's why it's important to start asking yourselves these questions. Who said these things to you? Right? Again, some of the things I lay out in my workbook to begin healing from childhood trauma. Who said these things to you? How can you go a different route, leaning into your agency? Tajay Harmony says, I try to give myself grace. Ooh, I love that as a daily practice. It's insane to think everyone else is human. That part is imperfect, but we ourselves need to be nothing less than perfect. Ooh. I felt that. Yes. So why are you showing grace to everyone else, but not yourself? Why are you giving everyone else the benefit of the doubt, but not yourself? That's really important. Yeah. Yeah. Being the best we can be is the goal. And that is an instant, but a journey of growth. I so agree. Yeah. Being the best we can be. Yeah. I so agree with that. Thank you for that. Yeah. And how are you denying your humanity, right? By not allowing yourself to be imperfect. We know that being human means that you are automatically imperfect. Like, those go hand in hand. So how are you denying? You're dehumanizing yourself by denying yourself the ability to be imperfect, to make mistakes. And who has reinforced that in your life? Getting clear about that. Yeah. Why this happens? Messages that you've internalized from the media, right? The messages we're shown that really want us to hate ourselves all throughout our lives. Brand messaging, right? Commercials, shows, social media. Oh my gosh. Let me write that down because that's a huge one. Why we criticize ourselves. And this is where comparison comes in, right? Thank you, SP. Comparison. Who are you comparing yourself to? Because this is the messaging in society. So now you're criticizing yourself. And what role does the media play in that? Oof. That's a video right there. That's a whole other video topic. Yes. It is comparison. That is social media often, right? And thankfully I've had to redo a lot of my feeds and the people that I follow so that it doesn't feel like that. But in general, that is social media. It's comparing our lives to what other people's lives look like. And so we begin to criticize. Well, my life doesn't look like that. I don't have that. And we spiral because that creates feelings of shame, which is a very deep emotion that is certainly not self-serving, right? That's destructive. When we begin comparing ourselves to someone, what their curated feed, because we know that that's not their real life either. Hope Richly says being bullied as a child and continue to be bullying as adult. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, the impacts of childhood bullying, I don't think have been thought of enough, right? As we continue to learn like the roots, how is this impacting our brain development? Going back to that. Or people, again, making fun of us for things that we can't change. And we may still have some of these things going into adulthood. So now we're bullying ourselves. Criticizing ourselves, becoming our own bully. Yeah. Hey, Alicia. Good to see you. Good to see you. Please check out Alicia's new video, Breathe, from her Breathe EP on her channel. SP says, I've done the same by eliminating the triggers, but I wonder if I keep eliminating, is it ultimately avoidance? That's a really deep question. I gotta sit with that. Is it avoidance? My immediate response is no. Right? If you're eliminating things in your environment that are triggering you and that bring you peace once you get rid of them, that doesn't sound like it's avoidance to me. That sounds like you're actually prioritizing yourself. But thank you for that question. I gotta think deeper about that. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for bringing that in. Yeah. Because that's huge with social media. Self-criticism, how we heal. Maybe it's by getting off social media. Taking a break from the constant comparison. Right? That's intentional. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes. Hope Richly says, it's protecting yourself. Yeah. It's protecting yourself. That's what came up for me. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yes. Okay, another reason why this happens, oppression. So you're living in systems of oppression that are attempting to crush your self-esteem and extract your power at every turn. Right? And that has to be said, this is not just an individual issue that we're dealing with. Clearly, because so many of us are experiencing this. So that means it's a systemic issue, self-criticism. Right? Intersectional oppression that Black women face in particular, anti-Blackness, colorism, texturism, featureism, sexism, misogynoir, ableism, ageism, homophobia, classism, fatphobia. And that's just to name a few. Literally intersecting systems of oppression are causing you to be critical of yourself, right? On purpose. On purpose. Self-criticism is extracting your power. And how do these systems continue to perpetuate that behavior that may have been rooted in childhood trauma, but now it's being compounded by living day to day in oppressive systems? Yeah. And that's important to recognize, right? We're not just living individual lives, we're living in systems that, again, are trying to extract our power, that are trying to make us criticize ourselves. Even if we get to the point where a wound has been healed, maybe that we experienced early on in childhood. When we go out into the world, someone may criticize us based on these things that I just laid out. And that reopens it. Right? So taking down systems of oppression should be like hand in hand with healing as well, because these wounds continue to be opened. It has to be viewed from that point, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. Carol says, yes, and create a sacred space for yourself. Yeah, a space where you can feel safe and valued. Oh. Yep. Thank you for that. And welcome, Carol. Good to see you. Yeah. A sacred space for yourself, a space where you can feel safe and valued. Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of this is self-work, right? It's inner work telling yourself that you were always enough, right? It's becoming, again, your own cheerleader, your own loudest cheerleader inside instead of your own loudest critic. How do you make that transition? And I'll go through some steps to begin healing too. But that's important. It's recognizing that you don't have to continue that. You don't have to. Now that you've become aware that you may be engaging in this, maybe through this video, now you can take a different route. The next time you notice, I'm criticizing myself in this moment, I'm going to actually go this way. Like even viewing it as like a fork in the road, right? We know the path that you go down when you continue to criticize yourself. Can you take the other path and see what happens? By actually being compassionate to yourself, giving yourself grace. Carol says, yes, today I felt comfortable not to attend a funeral. Yeah, just because I knew that the whole environment would make me feel very small. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. And it is recognizing that, are you entering spaces? That's one of the things I have on my list too. Yeah. Scan your environment. How we begin healing, right? Scan your environment. Who is around you that's making this worse? Can you set a personal boundary with that person or remove yourself from that environment entirely? Which is exactly what you did, right? Protecting yourself at all cost, self-preservation. As you are in the process of healing from self-criticism and reawakening to your own voice, because that's not your voice. The voice that's criticizing you is not your voice. That's someone else's voice that you've internalized. Yeah. Okay. So the point is, this is not your voice. Again, this is a learned behavior, which means it can be unlearned. What you tell yourself is powerful. Thoughts hold power. Right? So this is not something that's just kind of like childhood bullying. It's not something that can just be like brushed off. If you are going day to day criticizing yourself, being your own worst critic, what damage is that doing to you? What thought patterns are continuing to be solidified that you're not worthy, that you're not enough, that you can't make mistakes? And how is that impacting your health? Your physical health, your mental health, spiritual health. When you're your own worst critic that you've internalized. Because now you can't get away from your critic because it's you. Right? And it's only recognizing that you have the power to step in and literally cut those chains. Those are oppressive chains, cutting those chains. And realizing you don't have to continue that path forward. At the fork in the road, if that visualization is helpful, take the other path of self-compassion and see what happens. Hey, Tea Time Beauty, Danny. Yes, hey, all. Timely conversation per usual. Oh, thank you. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Other ways how we heal. Bring your awareness to the fact that you're criticizing yourself. So again, a lot of us will go day to day and living in systems of oppression that put us in survival mode. We don't often have time to zoom out and realize what we're doing to ourselves. Make note of the messages that you're telling yourself throughout the day. This can look like pulling out your notes app. Make it easy. Just notice, get curious. I just noticed when I did this that I just told myself that I was whatever, insert word here, that I wasn't worthy, that I should have known better, right? Making note of that to yourself so you can begin to see the pattern that you're telling yourself internally, because we're not always cognizant of what we're telling ourselves. So how can you bring your awareness to the fact that you're criticizing yourself? Make note, right? Voice noting, journaling, telling yourself, becoming aware of what you're telling yourself throughout the day. so that you can begin to step in when you notice yourself going down that road of self-criticism and taking another path. Carol says, because while I value others, I know that I'm not valued by them. The thing is, we want to offer our goodness, but sadly, the others don't value you. Yep. That is true. Yeah, and that touches on people pleasing too, which I talked about last week. We want to, like, that's a positive quality, right? To be able to want to offer your goodness to other people, to want to help other people, but not to your own detriment. That's where it has to stop, right? Because you see, right, the others don't value in the situation that you were in, and being radically honest about that with yourself. Is this something that I've seen play out over time? Right. And I think Glamazini, shout out to Glamazini. Yeah, she posed the question, are you living in a fairy tale? Right. And that's something I haven't been having to sit with. As someone who was in traumatic environments as a child, I often engage in fairy tale thinking, right, to survive what I was in. Am I now doing this to myself by not being radically honest about how I know I'm going to be treated when I go in this environment? How I know people are going to respond to me. Right? And that's where self-preservation comes into play. You have to be honest about how these folks are responding to you. Are they criticizing you, which is deepening these wounds? And can you extract yourself or put a personal boundary up so they're no longer able to take that power from you? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm celebrating you for showing up for you today and doing what is best for you. Danny, thank you for that. Yes. Yeah. 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 You're inspiring us, fellow recovering people pleasers. Carol, thank you. Min XOXO says, yep, we want to offer it, but they're not buying. What do we try to force ourselves on them or give it away freely? We have value. It's time to act like it. Yeah. Yeah. And that's bringing up another topic I thought about talking about, like the fear of abandonment. We will often try to force people to stay. Even in like toxic work environments, we'll try to force ourselves to stay. Speaking about myself, right? Forcing myself to stay in an environment that was actively harming me. Out of a fear of abandonment that was developed very early on. So these things that we experience in our earliest years cannot be like overlooked or downplayed because we're operating in the same thought patterns unconsciously. That's important. Yep. Judah Princess, hello. Says someone asked me once, are you kind? Are you kind to yourself? I didn't even know how to answer this question because I didn't know that I was allowed. I'm learning to treat myself like a true friend. Ooh. That feels like a hug. I love that. I'm learning to treat myself like a true friend. Mm-hmm. So in thinking about self-criticism, would you say this to your friend? The things that you're telling yourself. Would you say this to someone you love? All right, asking yourself that when you notice these thoughts popping up. Would you say that to someone? So then why is it okay to say that to yourself? Because are you not also deserving of the same love that you show other people? Yeah. How we heal, recognize that it's not your voice that's criticizing you. Really get clear about who said it. And I have this in caps on my notes. Get clear about who said it. This might look like combing through some past memories, experiences that you had. Who said this to you? So you can break that neural pathway, right? We're creating new neural pathways in our brains. Going down a different route of self-compassion. And to break those pathways, we have to know who told us this in the first place. To remove that voice. That voice is no longer, it was never needed. It was never serving you. It was meant to take you down a notch, and you don't need that anymore. So you're removing it, right? Explore the roots. Get curious about the roots. When did this pattern start? Do you remember a time before you were criticizing yourself? And when did the shift happen? Who were you around? Was it school? Again, the trauma of school. Was it a caregiver? Was it being bullied as a child? Okay, that's important. Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. Danny says, healing childhood trauma for me lately has been a lot of resting in order to take apart the details, releasing the burdens that were never mine to carry, and recognizing ways I can take my power back. Come on. Yes. Yes. Resting. Me too. Right? Because this is, and it may not seem like you're making progress. I think I wrote about this the other day. You may not see the progress being made, but know that behind the scenes, as you're doing this work, your brain is literally creating different pathways. Like it's like workers behind the scene, like literally building new pathways. Because you're recognizing that these patterns that you're in, you can go a different route, and you're creating that route behind the scenes. So you may not see it every day, but recognize that you are on the path of healing. And a part of that is resting, because your body is working behind the scenes overtime to try to process what happened to you. That's a step I lay out in my digital workbook, processing. That takes time, because these are wounds made early on. You may have been carrying them with you for decades. And now you're just coming to the point of awareness that this is what you've been operating in. So give yourself grace, patience, compassion. As you're in this process, this is not easy, but it's worth it to come home to your authentic self, which is the goal. Yeah. Carol says, I used to make excuses for others. They don't really mean it. I used to tell myself. Then I learned to believe what they say and do and not make excuses for them. Ooh, thing is, nobody ever apologized. I'm sorry, nobody ever apologized. I'm sorry. And thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah. Yeah. That radical honesty with self. That has been key to my healing. Right? Being honest with myself as a recovering people pleaser, right? You don't want to be mean to other people. That's something I've had to heal from. I'm not being mean. This is honest, right? This is the truth. This is how this person continues to show up. And am I going to continue to subject myself to the harm that they're causing me? As you're healing from something like self-criticism, are you going to continue to be around people who deepen the wound, who criticize you over and over again? Or can you put a personal boundary in place? Even if that looks like, if they say something to me, I'm not taking that in. I'm leaving that there. Right? Yeah. Danny says, this is what it feels like. Little workers. Okay, right? Little workers in the background while I'm resting. Success for me is how I treat myself, not how much. Success for me is how I treat myself, not how much I get done. Gyms. I know, I just had that visual, right? When we're resting, when we are healing, processing trauma, it can feel like nothing's happening on the surface, but we're tired. we're drained. That's because behind the scenes, like the visualization, the little workers are literally rebuilding your neural pathways in your brain. So you're actually doing a lot of work, which is why you need a lot of rest during this process. And again, it has to be said, living under systems of oppression, what do we often not have access to? We have to take for ourselves rest. Because what would happen if we rested? We would realize, oh, the reason that I am continuing to subject myself to this, criticize myself, is because these patterns were made very early on. And this even like further goes to the reason why we're cut off so often in the society from our childhood experiences. What would happen if we knew the roots of why we're operating like this in adulthood? If we could take our power back from those situations that try to extract our power. If we had time and space and rest to be able to heal wounds, how would that require a fundamental change in society, in upend oppressive systems? So this is all by design. How we heal, other ways. Substitute criticism for compassion and celebration. So can you nip that negative thought in the bud when it comes up and replace it with one of compassion? And this is really where curiosity and play comes into play. Get curious. Will you notice a negative thought pop up? Can you swat it away? Like visualizations are very helpful for me. Can you literally swat it away like a fly? And replace it with self-compassion. I'm not going to tell myself that I shouldn't have made that mistake. I realize that I'm human and I'm giving myself compassion. Just that action right there. How would that change things? Can you celebrate yourself for trying something new versus criticizing yourself for making a mistake, getting it wrong, comparing yourself to other people? Can you celebrate yourself for what you've done, for the progress that you've made? Substitute those thoughts, those negative thoughts, those self-critical thoughts with ones of compassion. Can you do that? What would happen? Right? And this can be over time, little by little, right? So maybe like today, if you notice a self-critical thought pop up, like I shouldn't have said that. Well, maybe next time I can say something different if I want to. Or maybe I didn't know that when it came out like that, it was going to sound like that. Right? And this is also where it comes into play, who's around you. Because are the people around you allowing you, giving you space to be able to say things incorrectly? And being like, oh, it's good. Or are they criticizing you? Are they continuing to reinforce that thought pattern that you've developed? So examine your surroundings. Who's in your environment? And how are they contributing to your further harm or your healing? MJ says, in my unhealed days, I used to say, if you bring it, meanness, criticism, unkindness, be prepared to get it back. Now I say, if you bring it, be prepared to, if you bring it, be prepared to keep it and take it with you when you go. Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I got to come back into the chat and screenshot this. If you bring it, be prepared to keep it and take it with you when you go. That's it. That's it. And that's one of the tips for healing. Build a force field around yourself. Create a shield. Right? So when you notice someone levying criticism at you, recognize that you have the power to put up a shield. I'm not taking that in. I'm not taking that in. Ask yourself, do I want to take this on or do I want to leave it? As MJ said, do I really want to take this with me? Is this serving me? Or was this person's attempt to try to take me down a notch? And leave it with them. I'm not taking that on. Recognize the agency that you have in that situation, especially those of us who are high. I went out, y'all. We are very susceptible to criticism. And so that means we have to further protect ourselves. Because your sensitivity is a gift that must be protected. So if there are people around you literally trying to take you down every notch, you got to build something around you. Either get out of that environment if you can, which is not always possible, or build a shield. Literally, like, visualize it like a shield. I'm not taking that. You've created a force field around yourself now. So now that attempt to try to take your power is not going to work because you're aware of what's happening in the situation. I agree. Yeah, I got to screenshot that. Yeah. And thank y'all again for sharing in the chat as we learn from each other and contribute to a community conversation for healing. I appreciate y'all. Can you change your inner monologue? Understanding that you get to decide how you want your inner voice to sound. Do you want it to be funny? Do you want it to tell it like it is? Do you want it to be sweet? The choice is yours. What do you want your inner monologue to be? And this is where you can really reframe it as an opportunity, like a fun opportunity. Who is going to be the voice inside, right? That I'm telling myself things. What's my inner monologue going to sound like? What do I want to make sure is there, right? Extra compassion for when I'm in these situations. Okay, well, you can add that in. You have the ability to develop your own inner monologue. We all do. You don't just have to continue with the voices that you've internalized that are not yours, that are not serving you, that are continuing to harm you. You now have the ability to build your own voice. Rediscover your voice from when you were younger, from before you began criticizing yourself. Because there was a point in your life before you began criticizing yourself. And going back to that, right? What can you pick up from that time? Tea Time Beauty says, yes, I like visualizations. Me too. They really help me learn. In the times when like information overload happens, going back to visualizations, especially those of us who are more visual learners, can you create a visualization for yourself when you get in these patterns? Again, the fork in the road. I'm going this way. The force field. I'm not allowing that thought to come through. The force field I've constructed. The arrow that I shared on my people pleasing video, the arrow visualization. Am I pointing the arrow towards this person, this person, this person? And I need to point it back towards myself when it comes to healing from people pleasing. So yes, yeah. With self-criticism, our thoughts can feel like an attack. And the more we focus on these thoughts, our reality reflects them. I so agree. Yes, visualizations are a way to practice mental control. Come on, fellow social worker. Thank you, Danny. Yes, visualizations are a way to practice mental control. They are. And realizing that you have control over your thoughts. A lot of us think that we just have to go whichever way our thoughts go. And we're not aware that we're operating in a pattern that is deeply harmful to us. No, you also have control over your thoughts. That is cognitive behavioral therapy in a nutshell. Taking back your control over what you're thinking. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you reparent yourself? Yes. Can you be who you needed when you were younger? And can you become that person to yourself now? Asking yourself the question, again, which I lay out in my workbook. Who did you need when you were younger? How can you become that person to yourself now? Reparenting yourself, being the caregiver that you always needed, but maybe you didn't have. Taking yourself out of harmful situations, giving yourself grace and compassion when you make a mistake, going back to your roots, and really visualizing yourself again as the younger versions of yourself. What did 10-year-old me need? What did 15-year-old me need that I didn't have? And how can I give that to myself now? Because I'm the caregiver for myself all throughout this life experience. You're the caregiver for yourself. And all the younger versions of yourself too. So how can you reparent yourself? Carol says, mind those condescending remarks. Yeah, I feel to respond in a respectful manner has helped me because previously I've kept quiet and then I became resentful. So speaking up for myself has helped. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's something I'm healing from too. Because when we are people pleasers, when we're engaged in that behavior, we do often grow resentful because we're going against our intuition. Something that's inside, like, this is not what I want to do, right? This is not the path I want to go down. But because I'm operating in the pattern that was developed in childhood, that if I said no to this thing, I would be punished, I would be harmed, someone would blow up, have an emotional reaction to me saying no, right? Now I feel like I'm betraying myself. And that can create resentment. So yes, I agree. Speaking up for myself has helped. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. And that's a process too, for those of us who are still healing, right? It's little by little, day over day. And that's why it's important to keep a log of your successes, right? What did you do that you thought you could never do? Did you say no to something that before 6 months ago, that thought would have made you like break out in a sweat? Say no to it. But today you're able to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Did the world crumble? Are we still here? Right? And now you no longer have to take on those feelings of resentment because now you're being true to yourself. Yeah. How we heal, affirmations. And I do have a book of affirmations, Cocoon, Affirmations for Transformation. If you are in the midst of a life transformation, trying to transform your thought patterns, this book may be helpful for you. I wrote this. These were actually a series of downloads that I had as I was exiting a toxic job and realizing what I was in, that I compiled, being in the garden, shout out to Alicia Renese, all the garden ladies, into a book that may be helpful for you if you're on a journey of transformation. Yeah, Danny says, yes, being able to recognize the change over time is worthy of celebration. It is. It is. Yep. Yep. Because you're not, like, you're in a different place than where you were. You're not where you were a month ago, 6 months ago, yesterday. Have you celebrated yourself for the progress along the way? You may not be where you want to be, right? And it's a continuous journey of evolution over the course of our lives. So we never actually get to a destination. I think that's a faulty way of looking at things, right? It's a continuous way of learning, evolving, gaining new information. New wounds pop up that you didn't even know existed. And now you have to tend to those. So it's important to celebrate along the way. Danny says, oh, thank you. Absolutely love Cocoon and have already gifted a couple of my girlfriends a copy. Danny, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes. So affirmations may be key to healing. These have been helpful for me. Is there a certain affirmation you can put up for yourself that may be helpful day to day as you are learning that you criticize yourself? Is there an affirmation that you can use to replace the self-critical thought that you can put somewhere where you can see it every day? Right? A list of affirmations that speak to you. I believe her name is Tony Jones on YouTube. I could have her name wrong, but she has wonderful affirmation videos that I've listened to. Black women YouTubers, right? There's so many videos of affirmations that if this is a way to counter those negative thoughts that you have, the negative self-talk that you're engaging in, that could be a way. Okay, I'm noticing myself going down this path. I'm actually going to put on an affirmations video and remind myself who I am. Okay, it is Tony Jones. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Affirmations. How we heal, revisit your younger selves. Realizing that we don't come here criticizing ourselves. Asking yourself, who were you before you internalized the criticism? Who were you before you adopted someone else's voice as your own? What does your voice sound like? Who are you authentically? After you have done the work to recognize, become aware that you're operating with other people's voices inside your head. Can you clear those out and recognize what's your voice? What you want to say to yourself? The thoughts that you want to replace the self-critical thoughts? Danny, yes, yes. Ooh, yes, and amen. I may not be where I want to be, but thank my Lord, I'm not where I was. Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's real. That's real. Yeah. And healing is a journey. It is a journey, like I said, it's a never-ending journey. As long as we are on earth in this experience, there will be new wounds that pop up. There will be new wounds created. We live in systems of oppression. As we work to disintegrate them, we're continuing to be harmed. And so new wounds will occur that we have to tend to as well. And so this is a continuous process. Becoming aware. How was I harmed? How am I now harming myself? How can I substitute those harmful thoughts with something that's actually compassionate, serving me, giving myself grace? Hey, Chef B. Hello, Marissa. I'm new to your channel. Oh, welcome. Great topic, questions and comments. Strengthen your healing and the wounds along the attacks will become invisible. Peace and love. Yes, I am. Thank you for that. Yep. Strengthen your healing and the wounds along the attacks will become invisible. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. How can you pour into yourself? How can you pour into yourself? How can you care for yourself in the way that you would care for someone you love? When we criticize ourselves, we can go down a spiral of not believing we're worthy. And this can cause us to stop caring for ourselves. I mean, even physically. When we think about dealing with depression, right? We may get into a spiral where we don't want to care for ourselves. We've become so highly critical of ourselves. We've internalized those voices. And so how can you begin to actually integrate caring for yourself, loving yourself, making yourself happy into your life? Because you deserve that. Can you develop a self-love list for the moments when you notice you're being hypercritical of yourself that you can return to? These can be activities that make you smile, bring you joy, make you feel light. Remind yourself of who you were as a child, the things that you like to do. That's a lot of the activities that are on my list. Things that I came here liking to do. It doesn't have to be something that you're seeking out, new things. It may be new hobbies, experiences. It may be a returning to who you were before you developed a voice of self-criticism. Did you like to paint? Did you like to put stickers on your face? I still have that on my to-do list from the last live on people pleasing. Did you like to draw, right? Did you like to go outside? I just got on the swing the other day and it was like, oh my gosh, I haven't done this in so long. Swinging, going down a slide, right? Crocheting, reading, listening to music, creating a self-love list. So when you notice yourself going down a path of self-criticism, return to the list and pick an activity off the list to substitute. One of the ways to heal, substitute the negative thought with one of self-compassion, the same for activities. When you notice yourself going down that thought pattern, substitute it. I'm actually going to engage in an activity that brings me a lot of joy. Oh, thanks, Danny. Thank you. Thank you for that. Carol says, I tell myself to stop. Yeah. And that can be helpful too. Yeah, whatever works for you. If you notice yourself going down that way, be like, I'm not doing that today. This is something I'm unlearning, even if you have to say that to yourself out loud, right? Talking to ourselves gets a bad rap in society. That has been one of the ways I have healed. Talking out loud to myself, because the voice holds power. When you speak stuff, speak words, speak affirmations over yourself, speak out loud what you're feeling, that's an energy, like a release of energy. And so if you have to literally say out loud to yourself, I'm not doing that today. I'm not criticizing myself because it's not serving me. I'm going a different route. I'm going on a walk. Right? Substituting. Oh, Danny, I love that. I made s'mores the other night. Adds to list. S'mores. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and these can be, again, allow yourself to play. Self-criticism can feel in the body very tense, right? Another way to heal, recognize how your body feels when you're criticizing yourself. Do you feel tense? Do you start holding your breath? And how can you counteract those physical sensations? Inviting breath in, inviting in gentle movement. Right? It's becoming aware of what's happening behind the scenes. That's how we begin healing. What am I telling myself that I'm not aware of? How can I bring my awareness to that? And then actively choose and lean into my agency to go a different route. Yeah, MJ says, sometimes I ask myself, what is the most loving thing I can do right now? I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And that's similar to a question I asked myself too, right? What would self-love look like in this moment? Those of us who are highly critical of ourselves, we know what self-criticism looks like. That's been a deeply ingrained pattern of behavior. Some of us for decades. We know what that looks like. What would self-love look like? What would self-compassion look like? What would showing myself grace and realizing that I'm a human being look like? Mhm. Chef B says, become a character. Ooh, create your character, your desired person, your alter ego, and or switch roles with the person who you so admire. Feed your mind, body, and soul. Learn how to frolic. That's everything. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, because you get to create that. The person that you always wanted to be, that you've always admired, looked up to. It may be you. It may be a younger version of yourself, which is the case for a lot of us, who was so free. How can you tap back into that essence? Because it still resides within you. It didn't go anywhere. Learn how to frolic. I love that. Thank you for that. Yep. Moon Warrior Turtle says, redirect the negative energy into an activity. I grabbed some chalk and played hopscotch by myself. Knees gave out, but I felt stronger. Thank you for sharing that with us. I haven't played hopscotch in a long time. Adds to list. Thank y'all. Thank you. Yeah, these activities, right? These self-love activities, they don't have to be something new that we've never done before. They might be. But a lot of the times, the stuff that we've put on the back burner because of the demands of everyday life, again, of living in systems where we don't get to play unless we intentionally invite it in, right? We don't have recess scheduled into our days. How can we create a recess for ourselves? Is there a period that you can block off on the calendar? I'm just going to give myself time to play, to combat these self-critical thoughts that have been popping up, and realize that life does not have to be robotic. That is the demands of the system that we live in that tell us that we have to, shout out to Rashida of Your Dream Strategist, this changed my life, that we have to roboticize ourselves. How can you resist that and lean into play and come back into the activities that brought you joy? Because that's your true essence. That's your authentic self. The things that brought you joy before you took on this self-critical voice of telling yourself you're not enough, you're not worthy, you don't deserve it. That's not you. That is not you. We all come here knowing that we're worthy. And it is only through a process of socialization, the people around us telling us these things, that now we start to believe that we're not. Every single one of us comes here knowing that we're worthy. Why else would we be here? Hope richly says, to myself, I am worthy of love. I am worthy of peace. I am worthy of just because I am. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of peace. I am worthy of just because I am. Thank you for that. Yeah. Tea Time Beauty says, I went roller skating the other day on a new trail. Oh, and there were so many people. I had to be so brave and was encouraging myself on the whole time. I'm glad I didn't fall in front of everyone. And even if you did, that's okay. That's okay. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, how can you be your own encourager? What would that look like? In the times you're trying a new activity, you're on a new trail, you're coming back into this thing that you enjoy doing as a child, how can you now be an encourager on this new journey that you're embarking on? Versus someone that's criticizing you for not getting it right. What is right? Are you enjoying it? Are you having fun? Are you exploring? Are you playing? That's the goal. I think that's also helpful. What's the goal? Is the goal fun? Or is the goal perfection, which you know doesn't really exist? What's the goal? And did you accomplish the goal by trying something new, by picking back up an activity that you put down? I started the week off getting tasks done with more ease, tasks I had been putting off for weeks. I think having fun had something to do with it. Yeah. Yeah. And that's funny. It's like it's an energy release when we do something that brings us joy, to allow us to continue doing things that may be difficult, right? The laborious task of life that come our way. It builds up, I think I heard someone use this term before, like a joy well within us. It fills us up so that we have the energy to now take on these tasks that we have been avoiding. Because you've tended to yourself, and now you're able to take those on. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah. All right, y'all. I think that's my notes for today. But yes, if you are your own worst critic, how can you bring your awareness to the fact that you're engaging in this behavior, and then actively lean into your agency to bring yourself out of it? Go a different route, again, replacing it, right? It may feel like a task to eliminate the self-criticism, because what will be there if I eliminate the self-criticism? Well, now you're substituting it with something that's serving you, an activity that brings you joy, an affirmation, right? Something that you did when you were a child. Compassion, celebration. You're substituting it. So now it's not just a void. Once you take out the self-critical thought, you're replacing it with something that actually serves you and that continues to support your evolution, that encourages you, the person that you needed all along. You're becoming that person to yourself. So yes, on that note, I want to thank y'all so much for being here, for engaging in the chat. The replay will be available. Please subscribe if you haven't already. See what else kind of notes I got. And yeah, if this resonates with you, if you are watching the replay, please let us know in the comments as we continue to learn from each other how we're healing from self-criticism. I think that's important too. MJ says, thank you all. I enjoyed being in community with you today. Same here. May self-compassion be gentler and easier after our time together. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yes, hearts to you all. Hearts to you all. Thank y'all for being here. Chef B says, start living boldly. Yes, start living boldly. You're so welcome. You're so welcome, y'all. It's always a joy to be here. And yeah, I filled up. I feel filled up from listening to y'all, everything that you've shared. Yeah, this is a special place. This is a special place. And I don't take that for granted. So on that note, y'all, hope you'll have a beautiful rest of your day. And until next time, bye, y'all. Danny says, thank you. Have a great rest of your day on purpose. Perfect way to end it. Yes. Great rest of your day on purpose. Bye, y'all. Till next time.